I'm about to share with you a few compelling reasons why you definitely should protect your kids from certain adult topics and conversations. While these topics are not carte blanche per se for every family, this video might save you a lot of hassle and headache down the line because you may choose to be a little bit more intentional about what you do and don't discuss with your children. I personally think this matters a lot. This topic is not an easy one for sure, and it can be a subject of great debate, and it is definitely not a one size fits all. So let's get to it. Before I get going too far, and in case we have not met, I'm Jen. I'm a learning strategies coach and parent advisor. My area of expertise includes ADHD, anxiety, executive function deficits, learning disabilities, or just in general where kids suffer from school refusal, school reluctance. So if your family is navigating any one of these challenges, I hope my channel is going to be really valuable for you. And before building my coaching business, I spent the past 2.5 decades working as a principal in our public schools. I've helped thousands of kids during this time, and the bulk of my work included work with kids in the areas that I just mentioned a moment ago. So, in this video, what are we trying to accomplish? I'm going to cover with you four key topics related to parent sharing or maybe parent oversharing. One, I'm going to tell you why I think it's important to protect your kids from certain adult conversations. Two, I'm going to provide you some examples of these said topics under the umbrella of adult conversations. Three, I'm going to talk to you about how kids process what these conversations mean from adult language to kid language, how they receive it, and how it translates to them. And four, I'm going to give you some ideas about what to do instead rather than oversharing, but still keeping in mind modeling and preparing kids for real life. Point number one, why is it important to protect your kids from certain topics? First and foremost, kids need security, safety, and reassurance. We're not interested in adding to their level of stress. Many of these topics, or several of these topics, are far too heavy for them to be able to manage. They don't have the maturity yet to be able to understand the context and perhaps the nuance. It's going to be our job to maybe temper it back a little bit, filter it a little bit, but more on that later. And as well, here, I want us to consider the timing, situation, and environment when these conversations are taking place, because usually the time and place is poor. And you want to be sure that you're in an area or a private space where you can have that frank dialogue without a large audience. The last thing I wanted to mention is the area of pro-social stress. Do you know what pro-social stress is? It's okay if you've never heard of this, but what does this mean and why does it matter here? Pro-social stress is one of the areas of stress where we adopt another person's stress as our own. This is one of the main reasons for me that I think it's truly important to protect our little people from some many adult conversations, which we'll get to in just a moment. So, what are some examples of these adult conversations, maybe that we should filter, protect, or temper? I have a few that come to mind really quickly. Off the top of my head, financial struggles. Kids need security here, again, not stress. So, bear in mind, you may want to give them some teaching about finance, but you may not want to give them all or the in depth teachings about finance. The other thing that comes to mind is marital conflict, things where there are relationship problems that are deep and long rooted. Some oversharing on the personal side. So, what are some personal regrets or past relationship regrets that you have? I don't think those are topics to share with your kids. I also don't think that we should be speaking poorly about other family members. I also think some adult issues, adult secrets, off limits in my view. Criticism about their other parent, for example. Let's say it's a split household or 1 week here, 1 week there. I think it ruins trust if you're speaking poorly about the other person. Your own insecurities. I mean, you don't want to be portraying lack of confidence to your child. Yes, it depends on the age here, but I think that can be tempered down a little bit. Past trauma, big emotional issues where maybe you're seeking therapy or there still hasn't been a recovery yet. Big emotional, unfiltered outbursts where you have just lost it. You yourself have become dysregulated. That's maybe not something that you want to have happen in front of your children. And the last thing that I can think of is just plain old gossip. Do you really want to be speaking poorly or airing, grievances publicly or poorly in a non-respectful manner about things maybe that you don't know necessarily know the whole story? I think gossip is also one thing that we don't really need to be sharing in front of our kids. You might be then asking, why the heck, Jen, do you feel this way? Why should you, the viewer, heed my advice? Well, I want to tell you that some parents don't always realize what their kids share when they arrive at school. And sometimes those educators who are on the receiving end of that tricky information, sometimes they're really not that sure about how to handle it or what to do. So when this comes up, the staff or the school isn't always in the most ideal position to support. Sometimes it also means that there are things parents don't know about how things are going on inside the school. And my take, I don't know if the governments want parents to know everything that's going on inside the school. The school boards may not want the adults to know. So, all that to say, if you want my take on what some of these hidden factors are, you're going to want to download my freebie here attached in the description. 6 hidden secrets that governments don't want parents to know about our schools and how these are impacting your kids. You'll see the link for that freebie in the description below. Point number 3. So, how does this impact our kids? How does this adult language get received and translated into kid language? How are they processing this? Well, let me share with you. 9 times out of 10, it's subject to wild misinterpretation. They misperceive, they misread, they misinterpret the nuts and bolts of the conversation. So, what happens next? Well, that creates doubt, uncertainty, worry, and instability for the child because they maybe only overheard a part of the discussion, or it was interrupted, and then there was a conclusion that got made that was not factual. They often worry about the wrong things, in my opinion. And especially if the children are little, they can't always grasp or process the situation. Furthermore, they're not going to be able to articulate why they are upset. They're not even going to know why they're upset. They're just going to know that something just doesn't sit right with them. They just feel off. I really want to hit that point home that what the kids come to school with versus what they say versus what is factual and actual, many, many times, none of these stories match up. What should we do instead? How do you model having factual, transparent conversations with your kids while still not totally oversharing and crossing that line to cause worry and upset? You need to pick and choose carefully. Be very, very selective about the time and the place. Is it a private family matter? Why is that? Why is it important to you that it's a private family matter? And one of the biggest takeaways here that I really want to hit home for you is the concept of age appropriate versus developmentally appropriate. So you might be saying to yourself, Jen, what the heck does that mean? Here's what it means. Let's say that you have a 15-year-old son and he has ADHD and anxiety and some deficits in executive function. And we know with those types of learning profiles that that typically means he is operating developmentally 2 or 3 years behind his chronological age. So your 15-year-old boy might have the processing ability or the executive function ability of, say, a 12 or 13-year-old student. That for me is more important than the child's biological age. And that should really help you figure out, what do you share? What do you don't share? What do you protect? And what do you maybe temper down a little bit? We want to model how to teach those problem solving skills and those resiliency skills. Absolutely, we do. Another suggestion I can offer here is considering using the case study model instead of your own household as the example. This makes things a little bit less risky, a little bit less personal, and maybe a little bit easier and less worrisome for your child to be able to comprehend or understand. Another great idea here is to choose a storybook. If you have little kids, a picture book is a great idea to reinforce or hit home something that you're trying to convey. In EduSpeak, we call this a social story. The book that you might choose covers a topic similar in nature to the one that your family is facing. It's a super powerful way to be able to support your kid without causing all the anxiety that might come along with that personal area of concern. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, schools are not always set up to manage our non typical learners. And you might be wondering, what makes me qualified to provide you with this advice here inside today's video? Did you know that I spent over 2.5 decades working in our public schools? I've worked with thousands of challenging kids in my role as principal. By the way, how lucky am I? And if you're curious to know more about my background, my experience, and my expertise, you'll get a much better idea here by watching this video here on the screen. I know that it isn't always simple and easy to protect kids from grown up topics and sensitive conversations, especially when for us, the grown ups' emotions are maybe running a little hot. And yes, there are going to be instances where it's best to share some stuff with your kids. Notice I said some and I didn't say all. Lastly, I hope that you found this video to be helpful and that maybe you'll be a bit more intentional on the front end before some of these topics come up, before you actually need to have a response prepared. And for me, it's really worth thinking about in advance because then you won't be caught flat footed or caught off guard, which nobody likes to be in that position. That's all I have for now. I'll see you in the next video.